So I'll just go ahead and get started. So thank y'all for coming in to our first CMX HQ event of the year. And so right now we'll get started with some housekeeping. And so please use the journal tab on the right to chat and ask questions using the Q&A tab, which is also to your right. Also upvote any questions you want asked on the Q&A tab, close any distracting applications. And if you want to leave at any time during the event will be posted on our YouTube channel in about less than a week. And so make sure you subscribe now to our YouTube channel. And pro tip, Bevy Virtual works best with the most updated version of Chrome. So if you're having tech troubles right now, make sure you're on Chrome so you can get the full experience. And so here are the new CMX Community Values. These are made for and reviewed by the CMX community, and we value our community's input and couldn't be happier to share our new values, which are to be generous, be groundbreaking, and be actively inclusive. And so we are very excited to bring you another masterclass. And if you are new to our masterclasses, this series is going to be a deep dive in community-related subjects, which we will have an expert come and deliver a masterclass with actionable tips that solves community professionals' pain points and provides them with the help and tools they need to succeed. If you have any questions, please reach out to Anne-Marie on her email, or she's also here on the chat. We want to know what you want to learn, and so we can help you grow. And so the goal of CMX is for each attendee to walk away with 1, meeting community professionals, 2, getting one actionable thing you can implement today, and 3, advocating and growing the community. And so CMX events are powered by Bevy, a software company in the business of building and scaling communities. Everything you've seen so far from this event, from the RSVP page to the page we are on now to the post-event survey, is all done through Bevy. If you want to learn more about Bevy, please visit bevy.com for a demo. And so the Community Industry Report has officially launched, and we want all community professionals to participate in it. The Community Industry Report is CMX's annual research into the biggest trends in the community industry, which covers topics like community measurement and metrics, community team size and structure, and community team salaries. And based on some early survey results, we have already learned that 20% of companies have a dedicated community department, which is already up from 15% last year. And that's obviously some great news in the community industry. Anne-Marie will be sharing the link in the chat. The survey takes 15 minutes to complete, and please feel free to share with your colleagues. And now, here's the moment that we are all waiting for. Today, we have Sitaara Jones for a CMX Masterclass about the importance of diversity in your community. In this masterclass, you will walk away with an understanding of what diversity looks like in your community and an action plan and the confidence to diversify your community. Sitaara Jones is an experienced marketer with a background in community growth and education. With a Master's of Education and focus in urban studies, she is motivated by the desire to uplift diverse voices and takes pride in working with students and teachers in underserved communities. As the director and founding member of GoNoodle's Diversity and Inclusion team, Sitaara is dedicated to ensuring that diversity and inclusion are a focal point in the workplace. And now, everyone, by using your favorite emoji in the chat, please give a warm welcome to Sitaara. Hello, Sitaara.
Hey, yes, drop the emojis in. I speak fluent emojis, so I appreciate it. Let's see, I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and fingers crossed that it works out. I think it did.
It looks perfect, yes.
Awesome. Well, Ivan, thank you for that introduction. It's great. I hope I can live up to everything that you said about me. But I am so excited to be here today. As Ivan said, I'm Sitaara Jones, and I am the Director of Community Marketing and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at GoNoodle. I've been at GoNoodle for almost 8 years now, and I have been working with our community in some shape or fashion since day one. So I'm really familiar with it, and it's something that I've watched evolve and grow into the amazing community that it is today, both internally and externally. I can't wait to share some information and insight in this masterclass with you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So let's get to know each other, right? I love to say it's a conversation and not a presentation. So as you're dropping emojis, I want you to continue in 1 second when I give you some more information about where to go next. But here are a couple of graphics that really embody who I am. Anyone who knows me knows that I talk about my kids or have seen me on calls with my kids somewhere running around in the background. So I'm a proud mom of 3. I live on the south side of Chicago, and I'm a former educator turned community leader turned DEI director. And I would love to get to know you all a little bit better. I got to know a couple of you during the introduction and while we were waiting to get started. But I want you to take a moment to drop in the chat 3 different emojis that define who you are. So it could be something that you really think just encapsulates who you are, your location, your favorite 3 emojis, whatever that may be. Go ahead and take a second to drop those in the chat. Awesome. I love it. I see like some computer emojis, a wine glass. It looks like we have some flags here. I love it. A fork and a knife. I'm right there with you, okay? David, you're in Bourbonnais. I know exactly where, I think Bradley Bourbonnais is. I know exactly where that is. Hi, neighbor. I see a police officer emoji. Awesome. Great. It's awesome to get to know each other and communicate a little bit through emojis, right? So thank you for doing that. So as a lifelong learner and a former educator, I bring a little bit of the classroom with me everywhere I go. Just ask my husband, he's sick of it. So let that set the tone for the work that we'll be doing here together today. So you may be wondering how someone can go from being a teacher to a community manager to the director of DEI. And like, it really is a case of everything happening for a reason. Hi, Mom, you were right. Everything does happen for a reason. And I always like to talk a little bit about my background because it perfectly describes why I'm passionate about the work that I do today. So growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. When my friends in high school struggled to determine what they wanted to major in, I knew straight away I wanted to go to school, I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to change the world, right? And then just how things sometimes go when things are moving and progressing towards their path, a hurdle was thrown my way. So at the age of 16, I discovered that I was pregnant. And my life came to a standstill. It's amazing how quiet a room can get when you're looking for community and you're looking for resources and help. And that is exactly what happened to me. The only reactions and resources that I received were people telling me that it was time for me to drop out of school and focus on raising my baby. And that was my crash course in learning the value and the importance of having a community to back you up. Fast forward a couple of years later, and I've graduated from high school. I'm in a 4-year college, and only to realize that I'm surrounded by people that look nothing like me, that don't have backgrounds that I can resonate with, that I have nothing in common with. And I was smacked with imposter syndrome, immediately wondering, do I belong? I don't deserve to be here. Why didn't I just drop out and take care of my baby? Just having all of this self-doubt, all of these concerns and feelings that were not doing good at building myself up. And that was my first lesson in the power of belonging. So today, when I think back to 16-year-old high school Sitaara, I always reflect about the difference that a community and having a sense of belonging could have made in my life. Now, don't get me wrong, I am the last person to brag on myself, but I made some pretty good lemonade out of the lemons that I was dealt in high school. But I always left wondering, what if? What if a sense of community would have been present in my life? What if I would have had a feeling of belonging right away in college? Could I have turned water into wine? Who knows, right? But that is really the driving force behind the work that I do today. For me, it's all about speaking up for the person who doesn't have the courage to stand up for themselves, creating a community for the people who may not even know that they need a community, and having the courage to go to leadership and point out inequities that they don't even know exist. So that's my why and my challenge, and ultimately what drives me and motivates me to do the work that I do. So as we move forward today, I want you to think to your why. Maybe you've never thought about it before. Maybe you just took this job because it was what was available at the time. But think about your why. What makes you get up and do the work that you do every day? I have a couple of challenges for you as we progress through our presentation, but I want you to ultimately think about your why, maybe for the first time, and maybe it's an opportunity for you to refine that why and come out today having a little bit more motivation to go out and do great things in your community. So I talked a little bit a second ago about how I bring a little bit of education into everything that I do. And this is going to be the first example of that. So this is a KWL chart. If you ever want to strike up a conversation with the teacher, just say these 3 letters. They'll probably think you're crazy, but they will instantly know exactly what you're talking about. This is truly the foundation of learning, and every teacher from pre-K through university knows what a KWL is and has used it at some point in their professional career to model and shape their lessons. So KWL stands for what you know, what you want to know, and what you hope to learn. Today, we know, or at least hope you come with some foundation, that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are vital in our lives and in our workplaces. We want to know how you authentically build those qualities into your community and workplace. And I'm stressing authentically because we all know what it feels like when it's done for show and there's no real motivation or effort behind it. And I'm hoping that you leave learning how to set a foundation for success in the next 30 days or in 30 days once you begin. So let's pause for a second. I want to hear from you again. What's something that you want to know by the end of our little fireside chat today? Drop a few notes in the chat as inspiration and also as a checkpoint for me as I go. And don't worry, you don't have to answer right now. This might be something that comes to you as we go. So as we're moving through everything, if you have questions or if you're like, I want to know a little bit more about that, drop it in the chat for me. Now, full disclaimer, I did say that we will set the foundation for what it takes to build a diverse, successful community that's inclusive within the next 30 days. But I'm no Whitney. I am no fairy community godmother. So as much as I'd like to say bippity boppity boop and all of this works in your community magically, that's just not the reality of how it's going to go, right? So this is a plan. This is a framework. I want you to take it and use it and tailor it to fit your community. Only you know the ins and outs of your community. And maybe you'll be able to take 1 or 2 things from our talk today to apply it to your personal space. But I want you to use this as a framework and not as a definite guide. Also, while we're talking about fairy god people, I'd love to start by thanking a few fairy god people in my life that helped me prepare for today, including Dr. Teresa Vasquez, my mentor, my amazing husband, the entire XLT team at GoNoodle, and the entire marketing and diversity, equity, inclusion team. These are all folks that have, in some way or another, instilled a little bit more confidence in myself, letting me know I can make it through this talk because, whew, this has been stressful. So I appreciate all of your support and all of your help, especially those of you who have texted me and are cheering me on as we go. So let's go to school, right? Attendance is done. Let's get right into it. So another disclaimer, like the typical millennial, I speak fluent emoji and GIF. So be prepared to see a few of those sprinkled throughout our presentation. They're all inspired by a couple of my favorite TV shows and movies. So it's also another way to get to know me a little bit better and hopefully to keep you engaged as we learn together today. So here is your supply list. Feel free to print this out and put it in your Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper if you'd like to. But these are the basic tools you will need to be successful over the next 30 days. Don't worry about writing these down or doing anything fancy right now. We will come back and touch on these as we progress through our masterclass today. So first up, our first class is homeroom because you have to start school in homeroom, right? This is all about starting with the community that you have. So most of us have some sort of established community that we work with. I want you to use that as your foundation and as your home base as we go through this entire talk today. So as you're thinking about things that I'm saying and examples that I'm giving, I want you to think about how it can apply to your unique community. If you are new to establishing your community, this is a perfect time to start. You can start from day one, integrating diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging into your community to ultimately make it a really safe and welcoming space for all. So we can't talk about school without including a Venn diagram, right? They're awesome, and they are a part of everybody's educational experience. So this one outlines the definition of diversity and inclusion and also points to where I want you to aim for your community to sit right at the intersection of both of those. So as a community leader, it's our job to find as many opportunities as possible to create diversity and inclusion and to celebrate both of them within our space. Systems and policies do not work without leaders like you and I actually implementing and living those things out on a daily basis. So as you interact with your community and host and plan events and get everyone excited to be a member of your community, it's important to create an environment that encourages a sense of belonging for all. Now, some brilliant person once said this, I can't quite remember their name, but I like it because it's simple and to the point, and it's all about creating the community that you need. So we're all members of the CMX community, right? Think back to how you found CMX. Was it because you were looking for a need? You were looking for a community of like-minded individuals doing the same work that you're doing every day in your communities? That's my personal reason. I'm not sure what yours was, but it was completely out of a straight need that I had at that moment. What were you searching for? Did you need to stumble upon that community, or were you actively looking for a community where you could belong and you could fit in for a while? I know when I created my blog, I struggled to find a community of Black and brown mamas that led lives that looked like mine that I could relate to, who weren't constantly pushing sponsored products in my face. So I created the community that I needed. And this was me, a year ago. And I wish 16-year-old me would have known that I could just create the community that I needed as a teen mom without having to wait for someone to create that community in that space for me. This is an actual screenshot from my blog and some of the topics that I have there in case you want to check it out. It's livelovejones.com. Just a little silent plug there. And at GoNoodle specifically, we established a community full of teachers from all walks of life, different schools, different countries, different backgrounds. We brought them together in a created space where they could share ideas, tips, positive vibes, and good energy. Because at the time that community was created, there were not many places for teachers to turn to for those resources. So what started as a really tiny group of about 22 teachers has since evolved and grown into a community of over 20,000 teachers with multiple groups within it. So here is your first challenge, and it's outlined as a homework assignment, of course, because we love a theme, right? But as you embark on this journey, I want you to use the dates that you'll see to the left as a suggestion for how you can get it all done within 30 days. So your first challenge is to define where your community falls in your own DEI Venn diagram. If you function like me, you might want to have a before and after Venn diagram. So really looking and thinking closely to where your community falls right now, and then where you would like for it to fall at the end of the year, within 30 days, within 60 days, at the end of the quarter, truly whatever works best for you. A question I want you to ask along the way, and I'll go over a couple of other questions in a sec, but what can you put in place to make sure your members feel valued from day one? So is that going to be a custom welcome message that you post once new members join? Is that going to be a survey that they fill out so you can learn a little bit more about them? Are you going to partner that person up with a more senior member of your community? Whatever it is, whatever you decide to do, you just want to prioritize making people feel included and seen right from day one. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, how can you make your community visible? There's very little value to having a community that people don't know exists. So really think about how to get your group in front of audiences that may not know that it exists, that are not your number one fans or your number one customers, and are unique from your typical membership. Do you need to utilize paid ads and promotions to point them to your group? Or do you need to go out and find those people that you're trying to target and find the groups that they're in, join those groups and see what they're interested in to tailor your content to that? Whatever it is that you need to do, you want to focus on actually making your community visible so that you can start to build in people that are a little bit different from your typical membership. And another thing I want you to ask yourself is how you can continuously celebrate diversity within your group. This is one area that I really feel like GoNoodle shines in, and it's representation. So celebrating diversity by letting your audience see themselves and the world around them in your product or in your community is huge, and is an opportunity that should not be overlooked. Beyond the variety of languages and cultures that GoNoodle showcases in our content, we're also amazing at celebrating different types of learners, neurodiversity. We do all of this in our blog and our email, so multiple touch points. And we have also established a community of parents and teachers that work with kids and families from different ability levels, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different communities. This work really helps us get in tune and in touch with everyone that's a member of our community, and then also helps us shape the content that we're producing so that all of those people can see a little bit of themselves in the work that we're doing. This also celebrates our differences and supports inclusivity with grown-ups and the kids that they love, to help inspire a generation of kids that will grow up and do the same thing. So there's always going to be that one kid that is touched by something that you did, whether you realize it or not, and grows up and is inspired to do that same thing and create that same experience for other people. And that's exactly what we're hoping to do. All right. So that was your homework from homeroom, right? Now we're moving into math. And this is all about crunching numbers, conducting research, and then applying what you learned. So let's talk about data. You can't live with it and you can't live without it. It is vital to learning more about your community. And I can bet that we spend so much time working in and with our community that it's easy to assume that we know everything about it, right? But not to discredit you, because I'm sure you know a lot about your community, but how good do you really know the members of your community? Here are a few audits that you can put in place either in the workplace or in your community to learn more about your group and about its members. So coincidentally, at GoNoodle right now, we're actually about to launch an environmental scan today. So this one's really close, but an environmental scan is really just a survey of your employees, typically anonymous, that asks what their experience is at your company or your organization, and then also get some background information on how they define themselves. So are they African American? Are they married or single? Or are they, do they consider themselves to belong to a certain group? This will give you all of that background information, which are going to be vital to, one, not only get a pulse on how your organization is performing, but two, also just give you some insight into who's actually working with you and working next to you. You can also conduct a content audit. So even if your organization does not create content, I'm sure your organization has a social media page of some sort. That is content. Anything that's out there for the public to see is content that your organization is creating. Do a look at that content. Does it look diverse? Does it only represent a certain tax bracket? Really taking a deep dive into who is represented in that content is what that content audit is all about. Another layer of that is really looking a little bit deeper. Yes, your content might look diverse, but is it only in February? Is it only during Hispanic Heritage Month? Really questioning yourself and challenging yourself to step outside of these set time zones to diversify the content and the faces and the family makeup of the people that you're putting up in your posts. And then lastly, in your workplace is a customer analysis. So this is just sort of like that content audit, but taking a closer look at the people that are customers or subscribers and seeing, are they all the same? Do they all come from, married households and, different things like that. So really taking a look at who your customer is and figuring out a way that you can be diversifying your content, diversifying the things that you're putting out there into the world to bring in a more diverse following. In your community, you can do informal polls and surveys, super simple, super easy, does not need to be anything extravagant or, done by a digital designer. Just something that you can drop in to get a quick pulse on how your community is feeling or how they feel about certain things. Again, a content audit, same thing, looking closely at that content that you're creating and putting out to make sure that it's representative, not just of your brand, but also of the world that we live in. And then a member analysis. So taking a deep look at your loudest members, your quietest members, those people who joined 6 months ago but haven't chimed in at all, and figuring out what their story is. More than anything, I know when data is brought up, it can be a little overwhelming and intimidating, but don't be discouraged, okay? I fully realize that we may not all have the access or the tools to gather the data that we need or that you think you need, but the key here is to start with what you have and do what you can. even if that means that you're starting with a simple 5-question survey that's not at all sophisticated or really pretty, or sliding a quick poll out into your community members, DMs. Some insight is always going to be better than no insight. All right, so here's your challenge for days 4 through 9. Audit your community. So conduct at least one audit of your community and determine which one is going to make the most sense for your specific space. Chances are that audit will snowball into more opportunities to learn from your community, and you'll end up learning way more than you actually planned on or intended to. For example, at GoNoodle, we did an internal audit a few months ago on our old values, and we found that they were not resonating with people anymore. So that audit led to another audit, which led to multiple work sessions, which ended up helping us work together as an entire company to develop a new set of values that we all agreed on. On the community side of things, we audit our community weekly, sometimes with silly questions and fun questions, and sometimes with serious ones. In both cases, though, the most important part is that members feel heard and seen, and that they know that their voice is valuable and that their opinion matters. So don't worry about bugging your community by asking questions or putting polls up. You'll see you can be able to track your engagement to determine if it's working for you or not, or if you need to switch things up. But more than likely, especially if you're responding and you're reacting to their feedback, you will just end up with your community feeling like they really have an input in the work that you're doing. Your next task is to analyze the results and create an action plan or an engagement plan based on the areas of improvement. So far too often, we conduct all these great surveys, we get a lot of data, and we never really do anything with it. We might summarize it in a meeting, but we can really take that data to the next level, right? So I'm not one to really bring up the past here, but let's let the last time that you did that be the last time that you did that, okay? No more moving towards creating a lot of data and getting a lot of data and not doing anything with it. So moving forward, I want us to take a little pledge here. We vow to put our data to work and use it to make data-driven decisions, right? Take a second. I want you to drop a 2 fingers like a scout's promise or a pinky finger in the chat just to chime in and show that we are all agreeing to this today. We're going to make a difference and we're going to do something different by actually using that data that we collect. Yes, thumbs up. 100. I appreciate it. Thanks. All right, we're all on the same page here. I can feel change brewing. All right. So speaking of making data-driven decisions, let's talk about what you do next. So once you get that data from your audit, let's use that now to support and uplift diverse voices. So we're in humanities now. We can't be in humanities without a vocabulary word. And here we are with a CRG. So you may have heard of a ERG, which is an employee resource group. And a CRG is literally the same thing with community instead of employee. So these are member-led groups formed around common interests, common bonds, or similar backgrounds. And this is a really awesome way to use some of that data to begin making those CRGs, or if it's in your workplace, an ERG for your organization. So without even knowing who responded, so let's say it was an anonymous survey, you can create community resource groups around your users' interests just by looking at and using that data to make some decisions, right? Here's a look at how we did that at GoNoodle. So we surveyed our ambassador group and we were asking them if they want to help create content. So we use their interest from the survey to create these 3 different groups: a blog squad, a social squad, and an event squad. So we asked a couple of questions along the way because it was an anonymous survey, and that helped point us in the direction of who felt like they wanted to be in specific groups. So we took anonymous information, listened to it, reacted to it, and were able to create 3 different groups instead of just our one ambassador group to really support people who have similar interests. This also improves their experience while helping us out, right? So it's kind of like a scratch my back, I scratch yours type of situation. But by creating these different groups and giving them a platform to blog or to create social content for us or connect with other teachers, we were able to take experiences from people in our ambassador group and amplify them to our entire audience. So a teacher on the South Side of Chicago talking about how she uses GoNoodle in her classroom to help her students find calm and peace and mindfulness at the start of the day can share that information and that personal story and experience in a blog or in a teacher takeover on social. And now we are amplifying their experience, showing that their voice matters and their experience matters, and also giving them a platform to share their story. So we're in part also supporting diversity in this way. So this is one way that we use CRGs in our community to really kind of build up the work that we were doing. Here's a quick list of how to establish a CRG in your space. And you'll notice that number 1 starts with putting your data to work, right? We just made Scout's promise on it, or a pinky promise, whatever finger you put in the chat. So this is important. We're going to use that data to help us shape those CRGs. Connect with your community champs. At GoNoodle, our little emojis are called champs. So our characters are called champs. So find community champions in your network. You already know who they are. They probably know who they are, but these are the people who are always chiming in, are always the first to RSVP to an event, or always the first to comment on a post. Connect with them, give them some power, and watch them thrive. Then you want to define some goals and missions and a mission for that community group. Recruit other members, and then maintain and measure. So working with that community champion to make sure that things are progressing, that they're moving towards their goals and missions, and that they're also auditing that smaller community resource group to learn from it as they go. So you'll notice that this challenge is a little bit longer. It's going to take a little bit more time because I really want you to focus on utilizing that data. So really analyzing your results from whatever audit it is that you decided to do and using that as a starting point. Next up is identifying and connecting with your community champs. Like I said, you may know who they are, or your community may just be getting started. You might not have any community champs just yet. Totally fine. You can designate a community champ. You may even need to be your community champ starting off, right? But whoever it is, if it's you, whatever that case might be, make a mission and goal after you have connected with that person, and then start to commute to bring more people in so that if that community champ does start off as you, you can eventually pass it off to someone else. All right. Well, I need a stretching break, but I won't ask you all to get up and dance today, but we do have a pop quiz. So in true theme form, we are taking it back to the classroom, right? So I want you to pick one of 2 questions to answer in our chat. One is, where do you want your community to fit in the DEI Venn diagram? And not your personal community, because I feel like that would get a little long in our chat, but where did I say that community should fit in that Venn diagram? You can answer that question, or you can answer this next question, which is naming one type of audit that you can use to learn more about your community. And if you're an overachiever, feel free to answer both questions if you know the answer. But we have a variety of answers that you can use, especially for question number 2. Quinae, awesome job. Content audit. You all were paying attention, were you? Great job. Snuggle right in the middle. Philippa, thank you. You guys, A+s for everyone. Gold stickers for all. Great work. Okay, good. I'm happy to see that we were paying attention, and I also just like to break things up from looking at slides the entire time. All right, so now you have all of the data. Maybe you have a CRG formed or an ERG formed. What's next, right? PE is next, of course, right? My favorite class in high school. But get up, get out, and get started. It's time to get to work, all right? Feet to pavement. Let's get it done. So one easy way to get started is to create a roadmap with milestones. I am a checklist person all day long, so I like to write things down. I like to map things out and cross them off when I'm done. It just feels great. So I always encourage people to do the same, but you can decide how to organize it. It does not at all have to look like this. And in fact, my notes in my little notebook definitely don't look this pretty. But you can outline your milestones by quarter, by month, by week, by day, however will work for you. And this is an example of a roadmap that has worked for GoNoodle and a few of our ambassador groups. And I'll walk you through it. So you want to start by collaborating with your members. You can accomplish this through some of those audits that we talked about, some of those same audits that you all just put into the chat. But even quick polls and surveys, you really just want to collaborate with your members and work with them. Then you can work to showcase and amplify their voices and their stories. At GoNoodle, we do this through teacher makeovers and teacher takeovers, not makeovers, and teacher features on our social and in our blog. So that is your opportunity, like I provided that example previously, of a chance to amplify one of those members' stories to really sort of get their experience out and also help that person feel valued as a member of your community. Next, you can surprise and delight them, show appreciation to that member, show appreciation to that group for actually contributing and being a part of your organization. And then you'll grow from there. So you'll be surprised once you start amplifying and showcasing people's stories. They will start doing that work and bringing people into your community because they'll repost it, they'll reshare it, they'll want to show off the amazing work that they're doing and their contribution to your group. So it will in turn help you grow as your group and then also help you bring in diverse people, right? Because as the people that you're amplifying go out and share with their networks may look completely different than yours. So you'll be attracting diversity, diverse people into your group, and they will instantly feel like they belong because they're coming from someone else's experience that they either know or that they related to when they saw it. Finally, rinse and repeat. So find the method, find the order of steps that's going to work for you, and then continue to do good things, right? Continue to go out and do amazing things in the world. Now, another thing that you're going to need to get started is an accountability partner. You're going to need a major pain in your life. I hope you've seen this movie, but if not, Major Payne is a major character who has a huge personality, and is really just on top of people, right? And that's exactly what you need to make sure that you're making and hitting your goals. So, entrepreneur.com actually did a study that showed that 65% of people that set a goal in front of another person are more likely to achieve it just from having set that goal and someone else being aware of it. And they also found that 95% of those of people actually achieve their goals when they have an accountability partner to check in with them about that goal. So the moral of the story is get yourself a Major Payne accountability partner, because they're just going to help you be successful and help you do great things in your community. Your last class of the day is all about listening. So in science, there's a lot of not just talking about things and knowing all of the answers, but asking questions and listening and making hypotheses and then seeing how things play out. I really want you to focus on doing this, because the work that we do in DEI and in community works can be really emotional work. And it's really easy to naturally feel like you have to fix things right away, or that you have to have a response or an answer or solution, and you don't. A lot of times, all people need is a soundboard and someone to listen to them. And that is really how we make a difference and how we make a change, and how we can use their experiences to shape the work that we're doing. So, as a community professional, we cannot effectively do our jobs without creating spaces where people feel like they can contribute and be heard. So, yeah, listening is kind of a big deal, right? Listen and learn, and then ask questions. Don't feel like you always need to have an answer. So here is your final exam review. If you don't remember anything from our time together today, I hope you take these 3 things with you. One is that your community should be a celebration of diversity and inclusion. 2, audit your community and use that data, right? Scouts honor, use that data to drive your decisions. And 3, never stop listening and learning. So we made it. Cue the Post Malone. Before you walk across that stage, though, I do have a couple of challenges for you. One, when we started, I asked for you to define your why. I really want you thinking about that. It may not be today, may not be tomorrow that you come up with an answer, but I encourage you to connect with me either on LinkedIn or via my blog or on Twitter, and share with me what that why is. When you have that aha moment, I would love to hear about it. I also want to be your accountability partner. So if you need to reach out to me and say, hey, over the next 30 days, I'm going to do at least one audit of my community, I will set a calendar reminder and come and bug you and be a major pain in your life to make sure that you actually hit that audit and hit that goal. All right. The second thing is I want you to find a brand new community to join and take notes. All right. Join a community, not just any community where you might naturally belong, but a community where you will be the minority in that group. I want you to take notes on how you are welcomed. Do you feel like you belong? And then use those notes, again, that data, use that to make decisions in your own group, right? What did they do to help you feel that way? Whether you felt really good upon being a member and joining that community group, or you felt really like you did not belong, and what can you instill in your group to improve on that experience? And use those notes and that data to help you drive and shape your user experience from start to finish. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you learned something new or useful. I will honestly feel accomplished if you take even one little thing back to your community from our time together today. I'm also creating a PDF, like overview of all of the steps that I shared here today. CMX is actually going to share that out on their blog. And then I'm also going to be posting it to my blog if you want to check that out. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I truly encourage you to reach out and make some connections. I would love to hear from you. I would love to see you hit those milestones and those goals that you set. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have now.
Everyone, please give a round of applause to Sitaara. I love your presentation. It was so great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I really loved how you created it all into like a class theme. I thought that was amazing, especially as someone who just recently graduated. So I really
No,
love that.
no more school, please. No more school.
Yeah. But it was great. I loved how you connected to the topic, and it was amazing. Thank you,
Thank
Sitaara.
you.
And so now we'll go to Q&A. And so first question from the audience is from Kate, and they said, do you pay CRG leaders or are they volunteers?
So you have to make it worth it, right? The budget that you have will vary, and it may not always be something that you can use to divvy out. At GoNoodle, we do not pay members of our community resource groups, but we do provide them with like sneak peeks at early views at content and exclusive behind the scene access to things. We do occasionally surprise and delight them with giveaways or with gift cards. So we reward them, but we don't upfront pay them. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it will work out differently though for different organizations, but from what I've seen, and even in the communities that I'm a member of, they typically function with like rewards instead of like a direct payment for participation.
Yeah, I think it's really important to like incentivize your community members, especially since they're helping you cultivate your community. So yeah, that's really important. And next question from Q&A is from Devin, and they said, how do you hold your C-suite and leadership accountable to use the data gathered to enact change? Do you set timelines for them? And are there particular professional platforms for gathering metrics and holding the organization accountable that you would like to use that you trust, i.e. McKinsey analysis?
That is a great question. Honestly, it's something that I've struggled with, to be completely honest. It's really hard to stand up in front of leadership and say, we need to do these things, you need to listen, right? So get a team of people behind you. I mean, our DEI team at GoNoodle, they are rock stars in like cheering me through moments where I'm feeling like I don't know how we're going to get through this. And also just telling me how to say things in a frank and clear manner. Also, you just want to get buy-in and make sure that your membership and your C-suite knows the significance and the importance of the work that you're doing, and tie those to your company goals and KPIs, right? So by having this group, it's going to help us also grow our memberships here and our subscribers. If you need to make that direct connection to so that it's kind of talking dollars and it's making sense to the people up top, then that's what you need to do. Another thing that I would do is set aside designated time to talk to your leadership. So I have monthly meetings. I also have check-ins with one person on our membership team, Marissa, who I know I can go to and bring these things up to. And she'll take it back to the other people on the leadership team. So find that designated time where they have to commit to talking and answering tough questions from you. As far as the second part of your question, I just want to make sure I'm answering the full thing. I'm trying to find your question. I lost it. You were saying, is there like an organization that I trust for, I think it's on the answer thing now. Yes. So we were honestly thinking about doing our environmental scan internally. We were like, we'll do it and we'll just make it anonymous. And we are actually partnering with this consulting organization called the Courage Collective. They are actually running our environmental scan for us and taking all of the data and putting it into a format that's easy for us to understand. So I would say if you're intimidated at all about putting those audits out and taking in that information, especially if they're anonymous audits, you can always find organizations that can help you run those audits and run those surveys for you so that you don't have to worry about losing any trust from the people that are actually completing those surveys.
And you mentioned it was the Courage Collective?
The Courage Collective, yes.
All right. That's really good to know. Thank you, Sitaara.
Hmm.
And next question that we have is from Kylie. They asked, I'm working on bringing more diversity to my community and want to do so via partnerships with other more diverse communities. Any tips for doing that in an equitable way and how to approach various orgs?
Yes, Kylie, what a great question. I love that this is something that you're working on and this is something that's important to you. One thing that I've noticed is that there are so many other community groups and organizations that are looking to do the exact same work that you are. So I would just start off by having a conversation and extending that invitation like, hey, I would love to partner together to do this. And here are the awesome things that we're already doing. And here are the awesome things that we could be doing if we partner together. I think that a lot of people are looking for those same types of opportunities. So I would just go for it and reach out to them and just be candid and be honest about what your goals are.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that question, Philippa also had a question about what are like some examples of real life communities who model DEI&B well.
Ooh, good question. I would say I really love one that was actually brought to my attention by someone on my team. I think it was Lizzie, but Better Up is an organization that I was particularly interested in after seeing their like About Us page. I really love the work that they are doing. There's another organization called Curious Cardinals. It's a tutoring organization. They just started off, so a very early startup. I really love the work that they are doing in diversifying their community and the work that they're doing in the world and in their tutoring space. I also love, there's an organization called Revolt Education, and it's all about teaching students the history that they don't learn in schools, primarily focusing on Indigenous and African American history. That has been a really great resource, even for me, as I'm looking at resources for my kids to learn a little bit more about our history. So, I mean, girl, you're gonna have to slack me or something. I could go on for days. There are so many people that are really out looking to do the right thing in this space.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that you're already teaching your kids. That's amazing. And like we have a couple of minutes left and we want to get through more questions. Do you still have more time, Sitaara?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So we have another question from Dia, and they asked, how do we encourage our quiet, unrepresented members of our community to engage and share their experience without tokenizing the individuals or turning the ask into a burden?
This is something we have to be really careful about, right? So it's about promoting everyone's voice, not just the diverse member's voice, but promoting everyone's voice and letting them know that their opinion and their voice matters. One thing you will find, and it sounds like this is something that you've discovered as well, but a lot of underrepresented people in community groups are quiet. They don't want to draw a lot of attention to themselves sometimes, not always the case. So I think it's a matter of reaching out to them and asking them questions on an individual basis. So whether that's like a message that you're sending saying, hey, I just had a conversation in our Facebook community group, actually in a public space, with a teacher who is a teacher in Chicago right now, and their teachers are going back to the classroom in a couple of days, but there's this big political hoo-ha about teaching right now. And it was all about like, hey, I love that you're sharing your story. Like, how can we amplify this? So going to them and asking them different ways and different strategies that they could use to get their experience out there. I do think that it's important to engage with those folks without being like, you have to tell me about this. I want to put you on our blog and draw attention to your case and your story. I think it's more so of really just getting to know your members on a personal level by reaching out to them and just checking in and seeing how they're doing. And then if it feels natural and it feels right, it's a matter of like, okay, how can we put a microphone to your experience and get this out there so other teachers can relate?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And we have another question from Pamela. And they said, I'm starting a new community collective of people who work in libraries. I'm wondering how best to build trust within the network and set it up from the beginning to have that trust.
Yeah, I honestly think that it's a matter of establishing trust in any group. And it sounds really cool for people that work in libraries as well. It's just another example that like every group and every space needs a little bit of community, right? Especially now. But building up that trust and establishing trust within any network or any group, no matter what it's about, is all about having some experiences together. So having discussions about hard topics or asking and answering questions of each other, knowing that even like disclaiming from point one, like this is our safe space, this is our shared space, none of the things that we're talking about are going to leave this space, giving people that confidence to share and know that it's a private space is sometimes all that you need to do. It sounds really, really simple, but providing that sort of feedback and that sort of disclaimer can really kind of set you up for success. Another thing that you can do is have conversations in private spaces. So if it's a survey and it's an open-ended survey where people can share feedback and let you know how they're feeling about different things, or if it's like a Facebook community group and you want to allow people to contribute anonymously, you can do that as well so that people are feeling like they can respond and they can react to the things that you're doing without having to attach a label to themselves.
Yeah, and on the topic of Facebook, Caitlin asked, curious as you talk about different strategies to engage and audit your community, does your community live on Facebook?
Yeah, so we have a teacher. So we have a couple of different spaces for our community. Our largest group of our community is within our GoNoodle Facebook community page, and it's literally just a GoNoodle, a Facebook group that we built for our GoNoodle teachers and family members. It started out exclusively for teachers, and then the pandemic hit, and family members and parents became teachers. So we also welcome family members and parents into that space. And yeah, it lives exclusively on Facebook at the moment.
That's really nice. Yeah, Facebook groups have definitely helped me with my community, so that's really great. And another question from Caitlin. They asked, would love to hear some examples of questions you include in your community audit.
Yeah, so different things. I think it kind of depends on your community. So in our community where we are all about content and we're all about teachers' experiences in the classroom for the most part, we will ask questions about like, what sort of routines do you have in your classroom? How often do you practice mindfulness techniques with your students? What grade of students do you teach? So like starting off with those very basic questions, where are you located? What are you in a private or a public school, to kind of get some background information about who our audience actually is, and then asking specific questions that can help us kind of tailor the content that we're putting out. So for example, if we are asking questions about what type of routines they use GoNoodle for in their classroom, or what are the main routines that they do throughout their day, then we know we can go in if a lot of teachers said, hey, I have a routine that after lunch every day, my students put their head down and we turn off the lights and we listen to music, then we know, okay, let's create a group of people that are also looking for strategies and techniques and tips that they can use at this time of day. Or let's include some suggestions for that in an upcoming email or blog post. It really just kind of helps us determine what sort of content we need to create by asking questions that are very specific to that group.
Thank you. And we have 2 more questions from Rebecca, our last few questions. And one of it is on my team, we're currently differentiating between audience and community. We currently have an audience and are looking to build something more meaningful. Do you have any opinions on the difference between the two and how the progress from audience to community?
Absolutely. So in my mind, an audience is a group of people that you talk to, right? If I'm a host of a TV show and I have a live studio audience, I am on a mic talking and there's very little engagement from them. A community is the opposite of that, right? We share the stage. So that audience becomes a stage when I call on someone and I'm like, come on up, come on down and engage with me, right? Now I have that person's attention. I have that family member, that the family members of that person's attention. It takes it to another level. So ask yourself, are you talking or are you listening? Are you engaging or are you performing, right? If you are engaging those people, you have a community. If you're performing for them and it's just you up on the stage and all the limelight is on you, then you have an audience. So I would say to progress from audience to community, it's all about engagement, not just commenting on things that they're posting either, but actually involving them in those conversations. Even if that means like you find that community champion and you message them like, hey, I would love for you to post something that happened to you this week. Like, or in a personal experience that you've had with our brand or with our content next week, and giving them the microphone and giving them the stage, that can make all the difference. One other thing that I'll say really quick, I know we're over time, but one thing that I'm really purposeful about in the GoNoodle Facebook community is posting things as myself. So I have the power to post as a GoNoodle emoji, right? And from the GoNoodle brand, but we get a lot more engagement when I'm posting as Sitaara Jones in our community, and people can see my picture and they know I'm a real person, and people can say, hey, you visited my classroom in 2015, and I can make those connections with people. So that's another little thing that you can do. If you're engaging with your community behind your company's logo, take the logo off. Keep the logo there whenever you want to post things that you might want to pin to the top of your message board. But if it's like a quick poll or survey, take that logo off and be yourself.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that you personally on the Facebook page. Personally, when I use the CMX group account too, I notice when like David or Beth talk, if they're not on a company logo, they're actually talking through their own accounts, and I think that helps like people get engaged. So I love that you brought it up. And our final question is also from Rebecca, and I think this kind of wraps up our whole topic. And what skills, experiences from your teaching days have you carried forward in your community career? Are there any aspects from are there experiences from other aspects of your life, example, motherhood, that have been applicable in your professional roles?
Yes, this is such a great question, Rebecca. Thank you. I think one of the things that I've learned from teaching that I carry over into our community is that people want to be heard. People have stories to tell, right? I taught third grade for the bulk of my teaching career, and I would have students who would not speak up, like unless I called on them. But when I called on them, they would have so much to say, and I would have the hardest time being like, okay, we got to move on to the next thing. Anybody else want to share, right? So sometimes you have to call on people, and sometimes you have to present opportunities for people to talk and engage with one another. People will not organically do that on their own. So that's part of the work that you're doing as a community leader, is presenting them with opportunities to make those conversations and make those connections and feel like they have the opportunity to share. Experiences from other aspects of my life that have been applicable. Oh my goodness, I'm learning more than anything all about time management, with like, you know, two little people and a teenager running around here. It's a lot going on, right? So I think more than anything, I've learned the value of time, and that's helped me dial back on all of the things I might be asking of our community members, because I'm like, these people have lives too, right? Like, so if we have someone that's a member of our blog squad, I'm not going to be like, hey, I need you to write this blog and contribute to this, and I need it by next week, because they have stuff to do, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that me having a lot of things to do and a lot on my plate has helped me really recognize and appreciate that all of us are busy and we all got stuff to do. So I hope that answers your question. That was a great one.
What a great answer, Sitaara. And thank you for sticking around after the time. I know you have a busy schedule, but thank you for answering all the Q&A questions. We appreciate it so much, and I'm pretty sure on behalf of the audience, everyone appreciates your answers as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, and this officially wraps up our masterclass. Thank everyone. Please give a round of applause to Sitaara. It was an amazing masterclass, and I hope everyone's able to take her challenge to promote inclusivity in your community or even your workplace. And so, before we officially end the stream, here are our next HQ events on January 24, which is also Community Manager Appreciation Day. We will be celebrating all things community with the Community Industry Awards. And on February 8th, we are hosting another masterclass with Darcy Loma, and she'll be going over how to stay confident during crises. And so that'll be it for us. Thank you all for joining our first masterclass of the year, and we'll see you later. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Sitaara, for joining us. This is amazing.
No problem. This was an honor. Thanks.